All right, so here we are, and Irvin is first with CVEs.
We have another record year of CVEs being found. To me, that's a good thing. We're finding more vulnerabilities out there.
It might be a good thing. I remember I saw a patch from either Cisco or Microsoft saying, we patched like 200 things this month or something. It's kind of insane.
I think that, I mean, it is insane, but I kind of think it's a good thing that we're finding more bugs and we're actually writing them up.
Well, yeah, and I think we'll get to this later, like the hack of all the government agencies. I think this is the whole thing I've been telling my classes in instant response. We've given up stopping people from getting in. No matter what you use, there's 10,000 holes, and you have to respond to people once they get in. There's no hope at all of plugging all the holes.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
At least we're finding them, and we had another record year of finding them.
You know, it makes me think that if you want security, you've got to have a whole different model. And I'm thinking something like Chromebooks or, you know, a cloud deployment of a desktop that only has like very limited functionality or something would be the only way to have a reasonably secure environment. Anyway. So then we got a debugger on Ghidra. So what's...
Yeah. So now Ghidra is going to be the all-in-one tool. So instead of having normally I would use Ghidra with something else like GDB or OllyDebug.
Really? It doesn't have a debugger?
It does not. It's purely just reverse engineering.
So it's like IDA. Okay.
Yeah, it's like IDA.
Oh.
But they're adding a debugger. So now it'll just be Ghidra. And then you don't need anything else. So that's it.
Can it debug the kernel? Because you'll still need WinDebug otherwise.
I think you'll probably need that for debugging the kernel, and for most programs.
Well, this is actually really important to me because, you know, I'm teaching that stuff. And in fact, I do get some pushback when they say, why are we using OllyDebug? That thing is like 20 years old. And yeah, but it's the nice tool. If there was like a modern tool that was as cool, maybe we should be using that.
Here we go. Yeah, no, I mean, it's didn't get a whole lot of press. I couldn't even find a good article about it.
Yeah.
But this is big news. This is awesome. So
yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Is it not big news because it's still in the development tree?
Right. It's still in the development tree. You can't just download it already. It's in preview mode. So
okay. But that's cool. Mm-hmm. That's totally something my students should be able to do is build it from the development tree. That would be a good project for them. Good. And then I thought this is pretty good. So the parents are immunocompromised and the school is super worried about like cheating. So they will not let you take the final exam over the web. So you have to go in person. So the kid shows up in a hazmat suit, which seems like what you have to do. And this reminds me of all the other articles we talked about where you know, teachers are just super worried about cheating. And so they put people through this ridiculous nonsense with a webcam watching every eye movement or some damn thing. Whereas, you know, I think the more experienced teachers have kind of figured out that cheating is just not worth all that struggle.
Yeah, anyway. I got a few hazmat suits during the pandemic as well. They're a lot of fun.
They're too hot, right? Aren't they?
They are hot, but if you live in the Bay Area where it's cool,
yeah,
it's tolerable.
Yeah, well, this is in Texas and Houston in December, I guess, and it is outside, so maybe it's comfortable enough in the hazmat suit. Anyway, I appreciate this kid's you know, seriousness about the virus. They're not kidding. You know, you could totally catch it and bring it home and infect your parents. That's showing more responsibility than, say, anybody in the White House.
True.
Yeah, but this is just insane. I mean, you know, I get that we want to go back to in-person school, but it's just insane. I mean, there was a couple that just died who were both teachers from COVID after getting sick this month, and I mean, it just blows my mind that we are pushing this so hard when it's obviously a terrible idea to do right now.
And in just a few months, we'll have the stinking vaccine. You could just put off your stinking finals for a while or something.
Yeah, or there are other ways to do this, you know, and I mean, I can see it in terms of, you know, there are some problems with equity so far as, you know, not every kid has internet at home. Not every kid has someone to help them with their homework. but there are solutions for this. I was actually kind of impressed and surprised with my old hometown, which is not very, I'm not gonna, they're not usually very technically savvy there, but they did something kind of cool, which was they equipped school buses with Wi-Fi access points and deployed the school buses all around the city to so that students would be able to access the internet from their neighborhoods, which I thought was a really cool idea.
Yeah, it does sound great. That's the kind of creative thinking you ought to have.
Yeah, and some school districts are doing stuff like bringing out breakfasts and lunches and stuff to kids who really rely on the lunch program, delivering them to their house, stuff like that. I mean, there are workarounds for this.
Yeah,
But
I just took my ham radio exam online, and they made me you have to get on a computer, you have to have no external monitors or anything, and you also have to join Zoom on your cell phone and prop it up so you can see your typing and stuff.
yeah, I mean,
So-
there are workarounds here.
I mean, and I don't think it's really worth it for a ham exam, but anyway, it showed some effort to prevent cheating.
And I
It was
really,
not very
I
big.
really don't think it's worth it for K-12 finals to be putting people's lives at risk. That's just nuts.
Yeah, remember, if you get a bad grade, it'll follow you for your whole life and poison your whole future. Remember that? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
I
a high
remember
school
that.
dropout. I never even got a diploma. Nobody ever asked. I waited for some disaster to come from this, and it never came.
Yep, that's right. I remember hearing that, and yeah, same. Never came into effect.
There's a bunch of things supposedly in my permanent file at City College reporting my god-awful misdeeds, and I highly doubt that thing even exists.
I'd love to see your permanent record, Sam.
I highly doubt they even have one.
Or did you do that thing that from the Dilbert cartoon of changing what was a warning into like a promotion?
Yeah, but there were people that yelled at me, "I'm putting this on your record." Then they said, "Okay, now I'm taking that out of your record." And I don't think that thing ever existed. I think it's like the boogeyman you scare your kids with. Anyway.
I thought that was the case when they talk about your permanent record and all that. But, it's interesting because a couple of years ago when I started applying for schools, I had to collect a ridiculous amount of information. And one of those was my high school transcript from eons ago. And, they would always threaten us with, if you kids act up, it'll go in your permanent record. Well, this thing actually exists. They had to go pull my high school transcripts out of their archives, and the lady who sent it to me actually photocopied. They had a paper file that had followed me from elementary school through high school that was actually my permanent record, and it had like school pictures in it and stuff like that. And she photocopied this thing and sent it to me, and I'm like, I guess it really does exist. I thought it was mythical.
Well, when I applied to teach college, I wonder if there would be a problem, but all it said on the form is, "What is your highest degree?" And I said, "Oh, good. Let's just not ask any other questions."
I've had applications that asked, like job applications long ago that asked if I graduated high school and where I went and stuff, but no one's ever followed up on that ever. And they've never asked for proof.
And
I hope it stays that way.
And how much difference does it actually make? I mean, especially in security, so many people have no formal training at all.
None. I wish I dropped out of high school and got, unpopular opinion, but I wish I dropped out of high school and just gotten a GED and gone to college instead, because most of it was a waste.
It's funny how many visiting speakers from industry have come to my class. They said, "Man, college is worthless. I just dropped out of." "Oh, I'm probably not supposed to say that here, am I?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't care. I want my students to hear the truth."
The two big ones, like computer geniuses at my school, both got kicked out before junior year. They both got expelled, and they're probably, I would say, the most successful people that went to our school now as adults.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
anyway.
Yeah, I got, I was background checked though. At the time I applied to my current job, I had completed all the courses in college, but never picked up the diploma. And I just put down, yeah, I went to college and did all this stuff. And then they actually came back to me and were like, we don't see it. We did your background check. We don't see your diploma. So I had to actually go get the transcripts and everything and show them.
Yeah, well.
So they do. Sometimes they do background checks.
Well, government jobs especially like to see credentials.
I wouldn't know anything about a government job, but at my private job at the telegraph company, they did.
Yeah. Well, you know, people do government contractors, they get that way too.
Yeah.
Although somehow not the one that hired me as a consultant. But anyway, I think if you're a consultant to a contractor, that's the plausible deniability. I know that's how all the criminals get hired. Like all the antivirus companies have to say, we will not hire anybody with a felony conviction. So they outsource to a company who doesn't tell them who's really doing the work. That's how you get those people in without admitting it.
Also, I think having a PhD covers for a multitude of other sins, probably.
I guess I did have to report that, and maybe somebody actually checked and made sure it was real. Yeah.
I think it's just because they figure you won't have a college degree if you didn't complete high school, which, as we know, is not true.
Well, you know, just like Jill Biden, I've never delivered a baby, so it doesn't count. Anyway. Anyway, so mobile emulators.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of a cool and interesting article. It actually surprised me a little bit that essentially these internet baddies were able to use mobile emulators, like the kind that we use for testing purposes, in order to actually steal money out of bank accounts. They were able to spoof customer cell phones, essentially, and break into bank accounts and steal money. Which this was the first time I'd really seen this happening, especially like in mass like this. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like it went down to even spoofing the IMEIs and everything else. So, and then they were able to set up access to other devices through that.
Now, like 10 years ago, there was a big thing where all Apple devices would send some kind of unique identifier and everybody used that as authentication. And supposedly it couldn't be spoofed or copied. I don't know if that was the IMEI or what, but Apple like deprecated it about 5 years ago. They said, you have to stop using that as authentication. But this is very interesting. I mean, is there any actual hardware identification of your phone that can't just be copied into an emulator? Because I know.
Question. It doesn't. I thought that there was, but I don't. Apparently not. Apparently it's not that complex.
Well, you know, I know the anti-piracy people have always wanted a unique identifier, and the privacy people have always resisted it. So I know computers don't have it. But I thought phones had it, but I don't really know.
Well, and this article's sort of thin on info with regard to that. I think it may be the case on, like, I was thinking about this when I read it, and I think it may be the case on some phones, but not others, maybe, because I'd be interested to see, like, if there is a breakdown of models and manufacturer models where certain ones are much easier to spoof than others. Because I would guess that to be the case, but I don't know.
I know another issue is that there is, I think, unique identifier used to connect to your cell phone provider so they make sure that you're the right person. But I think no apps are allowed to access it except the official manufacturer's apps. So your banking app would not have access to that.
I think it's just the IMEI and ICCID.
And those are available to be cloned, I guess. Yeah, anyway, that's cool. That'd be a fun attack to try. It reminds me of the people that clone the radio signals to break into Teslas and stuff from the key fob.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's see. We're back to here. No cookie.
GitHub has gotten rid of their banner cookies.
They had cookies on cookie ban. Oh, you mean targeted advertising?
Yes. Yes, they got rid of them in order to meet the EU stuff, the EU laws. Yeah.
So does that mean they can't have any advertising on the page, or they're going to get less money for advertising or something?
Probably.
I know that was something people were talking about a while ago. They were suggesting that perhaps targeted advertising wasn't that important, and you could afford to like not target the ads and go back to the way it used to be. But I haven't seen any like financial analysis of, you know, how much money do you lose by ending and targeting ads.
All right, me either. But yeah, they GitHub has gotten rid of those types of cookies.
Yeah, well, I know EU and California now have similar laws. So
that makes sense to not deal with it by just getting rid of them.
if you're not a very serious commercial business, which and GitHub is part of Microsoft, so they might be able to run at a loss. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens because this is a big deal. You know, as they're going to break up Google and break up Amazon, it's going to be a big legal issue of deciding how much of all this privacy invasion and stuff we're going to put up with.
Yeah.
I mean, then system bus radio. Okay. There was one using RAM recently.
Oh no, I think that's the same one. It uses the, what's it called? The MM stream SI28 instruction to write to RAM, and it just keeps writing to RAM at regular intervals in such a way that you end up sending out an AM radio signal at about 100 kilohertz. And it'll totally like escape your laptop and go out of the room, and you've now turned your computer into a little Wi-Fi antenna. And this is the library to do it if you want to try it out at home.
I've got an old MacBook Air. I could probably do this, and I've got an SDR.
You have an SDR. You need one that'll get 100 kilohertz, but I think you can do that by disabling IQ mode and going straight into just Q or I.
No, but he says 1580 kilohertz.
Yeah, I know, but the RTL SDRs start at like 28 megahertz.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I picked up AM radio on it.
Yeah, you can. You have to turn off quadrature.
Yeah.
And you have to then put on just either, I forget which one. I think it's I.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's Q. I think it's Q only, and you can pick it up.
Yeah, that's cool. So you should be able to like broadcast things over short range AM.
Yeah, and what this will do is it will play Mary Had a Little Lamb over your RAM bus.
Yeah. Well, that'd be fun to try.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. All right, and so more quantum mechanics, big leaps forward with quantum computing. This one here, see, most quantum computing is done with ultra cold ions with their magnetism or something, which is really expensive. And I always thought you're not getting anywhere until you can do it with photons, because they could be at room temperature and easy and cheap. And so now they're making entangled photons really efficiently. They have like a resonant cavity of silicon, and they can create large amounts of entangled photons, which is what you need. That's one big issue. And the next thing you can do is this one here, again, creates a large batch of entangled photons, so you can time their vibrations much more accurately than the existing atomic lasers. And they say this is so accurate, they might be able to test really deep issues in physics. Like one of the big issues is the speed of light really constant, or is it very slowly changing? And this would affect issues of the ancient universe in the distant future. And they can now measure it to great precision to see if it's changing. And anyway, this one is another big issue. Once you have created entangled photons and your qubits are stored in the information in those photons, how do you send them down a wire to go to the other end of something, to do the next stage of computation? You can't just send them through wires easily, so you do it with teleportation. And they've now made sustained long-distance quantum teleportation, which is a way to copy the information from a qubit over to another qubit. And they can do it like over 18 kilometers or something. So anyway, this is why everyone is worried about quantum computing. The hardware is just moving forward really fast. We're really moving into creating practical amounts of quantum objects at reasonable temperatures, So we're nowhere near actually doing anything worthwhile with it yet, but it's racing along just like the early days of silicon and vacuum tubes, when every year was another big leap, and you can see 10 or 20 years down, it'll actually be something you can afford to buy that works. Anyway.
So we will have a fourth processor, Intel, AMD, ARM, and Quantum.
Oh, I think absolutely. We already do have some quantum processors, but they're just, expensive prototypes that do almost nothing just to test it. But it's an explosion in the hardware. Everybody is finding better ways to do it. So I think there's no doubt that in 10 or 20 years, we'll have the first quantum computer that can really do something, and it will be, like a whole building at $100 million. And then it'll eventually shrink down, and in maybe 40 years, your desktop computer will be doing quantum computing, I think. Yeah,
I was going to say, instead of thinking about it in terms of AMD or ARM, I imagine computers in the future will have a CPU, a GPU, and a QPU.
Yeah, that's right, because it doesn't replace the others. It does a different kind of calculation. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, So that, then we got
We can
stealing
keep
data. Oh, this is the same thing, I think.
the thing, yeah.
Oh,
We
well,
can go to Irvin's next one.
yeah,
Someone
I guess so.
my theory and posted a GitHub repo. So
Yeah.
we can,
Verify.
we can skip this one and go to
Okay.
Irvin's next
Fair
one.
enough. And let's see. Next to Irvin's one is, oh yeah, putting Chrome on old PCs.
Putting Chrome OS
Does that
on
work?
PCs. Yeah. So Google bought this, or they either bought or teamed up with this Cloud Ready people, or Neverware. Yeah. They acquired Neverware. So I guess soon you'll be able to install and run Chrome OS on those old laptops that you may have around that can't run Windows anymore, and you can give them new life again.
It would seem like an issue of drivers is the big thing.
But Linux is pretty good with that.
I guess I know I've got some Chromebooks that I hacked to take Chrome OS off it. I can't put it back on. Now I have to go to like third-party Gallium OS, because once you've trashed the Chrome bootloader, you're off the map. Anyway.
Maybe this is a way to bring that back.
Might be, yeah. Anyway, it's certainly increasingly important these days. That's why I'm making them for my students who don't have any computer they can use at home and they're always getting infected and stuff. You give them a Chromebook, and then they can like open Zoom and do their homework, even though they can't really, you can't really mess it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we can do that with old PCs.
Yeah, might be a good thing. And let's see this. Why am I losing? Wait, what's going on here? Okay, we're down to the neo-Nazis. Okay.
Yep, neo-Nazis. So survivors of neo-Nazi attacks have banded together and are creating a platform for tracking neo-Nazi extremists online, which is really something that really needs to be done, because one of the modern tactics that Nazis use in recruitment is that they infiltrate other types of communities, right? So that you might have a community of people who play Fortnite. They'll come in and then start basically pouring toxic into the community and start getting people onto their side. And having a resource that says, hey, this person's a, Nazi, look out, make people aware of what's going on, could really get in the way of their goals, right? You don't want them to be able to slip in communities and have people who have no idea or even met a Nazi before or know what Nazis look like, just be bamboozled by them. So we really need to curb the spread of Nazis and racist extremists online somehow, and this is a first good step.
It does sound like it. I mean, they're not actually going out in the street fighting anybody, right? They're just getting online and talking to people.
Right. Yeah. That's in order for their movement to grow. They need support, and they do that by essentially infiltrating, like I said, other groups. And we've seen this just take over groups like 4chan, where they just went on to, a geek board or whatever, and just filled up with toxic racist imagery and, oh, it's just a joke, but it's really wink, wink, not a joke. And then they, get a bunch of people who end up going out killing people eventually. So
I'm watching it happen. I had like a right-wing friend I didn't see for a few months, and I wondered if she was okay. And she reappears online saying, they hacked the vote. We need to like punish the voting machine makers and stuff. And they don't believe random stuff. They're totally fed this alternate reality of propaganda. So, I mean, it's very much like a religion or something. You join some group, and now you believe everything that comes from that group.
Right. And like I said, it's really easy if people are getting into groups like Fortnite players or something, where it's just a video game. You're not thinking, this is going to lead to Nazism, but that's what the Nazis, want to do. So,
well, like any other cult, it's an emotional vulnerability. You're lonely, and you're hoping to find like a tribe to join.
Right.
And you'll cheerfully sort of go along with pretty much anything just to be in the tribe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely a component. So
we definitely need to do something about it here. I know in Germany they have huge laws against Nazi propaganda and Holocaust denial and stuff. That's what they're doing, and that's what some people want to do here, is heavily censor the internet. And I don't know what we're going to do right now. It's a huge problem.
I think exposure is the most important thing, and I think that's why I really want to point to this project, because instead of trying to like censor the internet, which I do believe people who own personal websites, you know, like Twitch, or who own boards like 4chan, I think the owners do have a responsibility to kick off the Nazis. But first they gotta know who the Nazis are, right? And the users, and if they're not gonna kick off the Nazis because it's too big of a hassle for them, then the users need to know. And that's where this comes in.
Well, right now, I mean, if you look at like Twitter and Facebook, the far right is now so big and so mainstream that they really can't kick them off. They're not even considered illegitimate anymore. It is, it's like once you let something grow to a certain size, it's almost impossible to stop.
Right.
But you can at least call it out. You're kind of like a neighborhood watch. You're calling out these people so that they lose the element of surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it may be big, but they're still a minority, and the amount of people who are really extreme, the outright racist Nazis, the Jews will not replace us types of people. They're still super minorities, and we can still call them out, and we can still get them booted off, you know, Twitter and others.
Well, I hope you're right.
And I think that's going to have some ripple effects in terms of, because they really have, you know, embedded themselves into mainstream politics, and we need to get them out.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why, you know, so many people are leaving the Republican Party. There are just so many outrageous things that are now considered normal, like claiming the election was rigged, claiming their vaccine has like microchips in it and stuff. This is not even considered extreme talk anymore. No. Something like half of the Americans believe this stuff.
The other thing that's crazy is that a bunch of them now, the rhetoric is that it's all they want to talk about is China and the Bidens and how the Chinese were like hacking the elections with total willful disregard of anything that the Russians are doing. And the Russians are doing a lot right now.
Yeah, except they did not mess with the election, as a matter of fact. But anyway, I think that's where we're headed. The Russian stuff is very interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess I just wanted to put this, I thought this is great. I wondered how the spiders get these long webs in my house. I didn't know this.
And the female has a
this thing here, the female, a little tiny spider, she sprays out 25 yards of silk and 20 strands of it. And it blows across a river so she can build a web in the middle of a river.
Wow.
And they don't know how she does it. This stuff is stronger than steel. I mean, a strand of it 25 yards long is enough to hold her up. She goes out there and puts on more strands to strengthen it. And it's bloody awesome. And I remember when I was a kid, Spider-Man's flying around, and I don't know how he did that. They really do. They also fly. They spin out web and they get caught in an electric field and fly around with it. It's bloody awesome. I didn't know any of this. But anyway, it's, yeah, that's interesting stuff. Anyway, so, and then we got U.S. getting hacked by the Russians and a bunch of these. So
yeah, this is just some follow-ups from the story on Monday. It's all ties into the FireEye breach and everything else.
Yeah, FireEye discovered it. So in a way, they're the good guys.
Yep. And yeah, it went wide and far. But what surprised me about this was that the same people also got into Microsoft, and
well, everybody uses SolarWinds, right? So they basically get in everybody.
Yeah.
Just like in 2010, the Chinese got into everybody.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and so I just thought this was pretty interesting. The government this week, my friends that work in government security have just been running around kind of tearing their hair out all week. But it's interesting because it's a lot more widespread than we had previously thought. And I think it's interesting too that I saw some story yesterday. It was yesterday saying that Trump was like briefed on this yesterday or the day before, and still hasn't made a statement on it. I mean, I haven't checked today, but
yeah, all the reports I say that Trump is completely checked out from everything except complaining about the election being rigged, and nothing else is of any real interest to him.
Well, that's on brand.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so 18,000 people supposedly used this stuff that got hacked, which means the Russians could have investigated but it didn't do any great harm, which is why I thought it was very interesting. This was Alex Damos, who was the security officer at Facebook and Yahoo. I heard an interview with him this morning, part that was covered in this article, and he said, the U.S. has never done anything about this kind of breach. It's happened many times because we do it all the time. We do it to everybody else, and this is considered fair play. If you don't actually destroy something like take down the power grid or mess with the election, then this is just considered standard espionage, and we don't really do anything about it because we're doing the same thing. And he pointed out this one, of course, the CIA totally did this for 50 years. We infiltrated this Swiss company that made cryptography hardware, so all the data went straight to the NSA. So we did the same thing to the whole world first. So we have nobody wants to put this over the line. That's why they said, in a way, they say deterrence kind of works. In 2016, the Russians influenced the election and we made a big stink. So this time they did not mess with the election. They totally could have. And they totally could have messed with the vaccine rollout. Like they said, they could have totally brought down the systems at the hospitals that are about to distribute the vaccine. They could have, and they didn't. And he said that's perhaps because the branch of the Russian military that did this is not the one that takes down harms enemy nations. They're the intelligence gathering branch. And so anyway, it's
interesting.
But they are on the systems and they're spying to collect data, but they're not doing any direct harm. It reminds me of a lot of previous infections like Configure. Configure infected like millions of machines and then nothing happened. They could have done something, but they just didn't. And anyway, the other thing he said, which I thought is great, is this is, you just have to accept this. People can get in all the time. There's no way to keep them out. So instead you have to have internal layers of defenses and try to detect them and limit how much harm they do. But this is like zero trust. You know that there are bad guys in your network and you cope with that.
And the other thing is that you can't just apply some third party, and I see this a lot, where a business, or in this case, a government agency, will apply, throw money at the problem. They'll apply some expensive like third party monitoring solution and to their network and say, okay, we're all good now. We've got SolarWinds up and running, we've got the Orion up and running, everything's fine. We've got our monitoring software dialed in. We'll get alerts if anything bad happens. And you can't just always rely on that stuff.
I think really we just need to grow up and accept reality. This has always been true, say, of your own employees. Right? Some of your own employees are stupid. Some of them are disloyal. Some have been bribed by your enemies. Some are breaking your security rules, and that's happening, and you can't get the chance of it going down to zero. So you just have to have controls to detect and limit how much harm all these various bad things do, instead of pretending that you have somehow stamped it out entirely.
Can I just point out how amazing the turnaround has been on the public perception of FireEye? Because last week people were saying, oh my God, how could these people find out they've been hacked? And can we really trust these people now? And now we find out that, of course, they were the first ones to find out this massive breach, and they're the heroes.
I never heard anybody say that anything other than thinking they were heroes, but I don't pay attention to
yeah, on Twitter, a few people were kind of going, oh, FireEye, who's supposed to be a security company, found hackers on their system.
Well, and that was the thing. The stock price did fall for a few days.
Yes.
But then it came back up, which is what I would expect. That's why I was thinking, if you want money, just buy it in this few days because it's going to come back.
Yeah.
This is just irrational thinking, oh, they got hacked. The Russians hacked you. That means you're no good. I say, all the rest of us know, of course, the Russians hack you if they want to, just like the NSA hacks you if you want to. There's nothing you can buy that will stop them if they're coming.
Yes.
It doesn't prove that there's anything wrong with you. I mean, it's like if the U.S. military wanted to shoot you with a gun, you're toast, right? You can't hide anywhere. You can't buy any armor. You can't get a bodyguard that will stop you. That's what they're for.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, the turnaround has been wonderful, especially because I was one of the few people sort of, I'm not a fan of FireEye, but I was, you know, I was vocal in saying, hey, don't be too hard on them. You know, they can't really keep out the Russian.
And plus, I mean, I felt like that was the way to handle an incident like this. They were upfront about it. They were transparent about it. They said, you know, this is what happened and this is how we found it and what's going on. And I mean, that's, I respect that. You know, there are a lot of companies that choose the obfuscate and deny result, and that's really where you tend to start getting into trouble, because the truth always comes out.
Yeah, this is the same as the other thing we've talked about, like teachers that make a mistake or don't know something. And just say, yeah, I don't know about that. Well, somebody else explain it. I'll try and figure it out. That's what you do. You don't try to pretend you know it when you don't know it.
Right. Nothing's not, you know, I think part of it too, there's the psychological component to it, where every time something like this happens, you know, it's just a reminder that nothing's fully secure and no system is ever like completely unhackable. And you know, that makes a lot of people very uncomfortable on a deep level.
Well, I think there you've just got a fundamental issue. People want to imagine there is no risk in their life. Like people think, I'm not going to take the vaccine because one person in a million might get killed by the vaccine. And I'm like, well, one person in 100 will get killed by the virus. So you choose the path of least risk. But they say, I don't want any risk at all. And I said, well, there's no choice like that. Just put that out of your mind. All of life is a calculated risk. And no matter what you do, you're going to get old and die. So, you know, there's risk. Just get over panicking over every little risk. But most people don't want that. They want to be told that everything is fine and there's no risk, which is sort of infantile of them. Anyway. All right, any more comments? Oh, I'll stop this one. If I can find the right button.